Okay, so you're probably going, is this an Noxema commercial or what? But actually, it's the gist, and I'm your host, Chris Vetrano, here to share everything happening in entertainment and revisiting the biggest moments from pop culture's past. Today, we have an iconic guest that defined a generation of pop culture moments. She was a star of one of my favorite movies of all time, Clueless. She also starred in Sabrina the Teenage Witch, A Night at the Roxbury, appeared on my favorite TV series of the 90s, Beverly Hills 90210, and drove Joey Fatone crazy in NSYNC's I Drive Myself Crazy video. Oh, and as if that wasn't enough, she's also a director, the author of Wake Me When You Leave, and just starred in an incredible new Super Bowl ad for Rakuten. Please give a hey ambular to my guest, Elisa Donovan. Hey, Elisa.
Oh, hi. What an intro. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know the film very well. As you can see, I tried to bring in some of the quotes that you might recognize. But thank you so much for doing this. This is like honestly a dream come true. I don't want to gush too much because I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but you were like such a staple for mine growing up. I watched Clueless all the time. I watched the series. Obviously, Ginger LaMonica on 90210, I thought needed to be a regular. So I know the catalog, and it's so great to have you here doing this today.
Oh, I love it. Well, it's my pleasure. I mean, it's nice to be so appreciated.
Well, of course. So you just did the Super Bowl ad revisiting Amber. So tell me, like, how was it sort of stepping back into her shoes after all this time?
Well, it was surprisingly easy, although that's why I'm not sure if that's a positive or a negative. I think that character is just so embedded in me, and anytime I try to forget about it, someone reminds me. So it's always not try to forget about it, but you know what I mean. It's very present for a lot of people, that film. So it just felt really fun to step back into that as a grown up. And
Sure.
I mean, looking over at Alicia, and she's in her yellow plaid, and they recreated that set virtually to a T. It was surreal. I mean, we were kind of laughing, going, where are we? What is happening right now?
Yeah, it was like, it seemed like it was exactly the scene from the movie. And you guys both look incredible. And I was like very much believing that it was just footage that was left on the cutting room floor from back in the day.
I love it.
It was so great. And then so I was looking up your credits, and before Clueless, you had done 2 episodes of Blossom, and was Clueless like your real like first big break after that?
Oh yes, for sure. And Blossom was the first TV job that I had in LA, and they had hired me for 1 episode, and then they loved the chemistry that I was playing opposite Joey Lawrence, and they just loved the chemistry that we had. So they wrote me in another episode, and then they were going to continue to write me in, and then I got the film of Clueless, so I couldn't go back to Blossom. And yeah, that's how it all happened.
That's amazing. I mean, because Amber is like such an iconic character. I mean, she defined fashion. She was like, she had her own lingo. She was such a crazy character that people remember so much. I mean, obviously, like the Alicia is like, the yellow plaid, as you mentioned, is like this like iconic look. But I feel like Amber was like the fashion queen. And I mean, so did you feel like that was a natural role for you? Do you align with Amber, or was that something different for you to play?
So I aligned with her in the sense that she's an innovator and kind of on her own program. I think that her focus and her concerns are a little different than mine. But I do love clothing, and I love fashion, and I always am a bit untraditional in that sense. So I really kind of focused in on that with her. I think that, the costume designer, Mona May, was absolutely incredible. And Lisa Evans, who was her associate at the time, and Lisa has a very big career now for herself as well. And they just created such incredible, full fully realized outfits, right? So the idea was always that Amber's going to take something off the runway in Paris and wear it to English class, and then always have it reflect what she's feeling, you know? Oh, she's feeling like she'd rather be on her yacht today, so she's going to wear a yachting, you know, just, which I also identify with, that feeling of, I like clothing to reflect how I'm feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
Amber just really had, she did that to the nines.
Yeah, she did. It was like I said, I mean, there's so many quotable lines, and I feel like Amber is responsible for so many of them. And so it was, I'm sure that you get them all the time, just across the street, people yelling them at you, like I just sort of did in the intro.
Yeah, she definitely, it's kind of, you know, she didn't have a lot to say in the film, but what she said, nobody forgets.
Exactly. How is, I mean, I know your daughter's starting to get older. How is she? Has she seen the film? What is her sort of thoughts of like mom being this iconic character?
So she has not seen the film. I still feel like she's a little bit young. She's 10. But I'm a little more conservative than a lot of people in terms of what we let her watch. But I think she's probably in a year or two, maybe she can watch it. So she sort of just understands it from the standpoint of what other people say to her. And so even with the commercial, she said, "You're doing this, whatever, with your hands." And I said, it's a thing that people, you know, like me to do. And that was a part. So it's all, I mean, look, the only thing that she cares about is that now I am associated in some way with the Super Bowl. And also with the Golden State Warriors, because Rakuten is the main sponsor for the Warriors. And we are huge Warriors fans, but she is a huge sports fan and a very big Warriors fan. And so they very graciously allowed us to have their courtside seats for the Warriors game the other night. And that just like changed my daughter's life. So now she loves that I am, you know, an actress, but she doesn't, it's really just because of how it benefits her.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, she, I saw the story of her getting to meet the players and stuff. And that was really sweet.
Incredible. And we have this picture of her where Klay Thompson is high-fiving her, and you just see her face light up in this way, like, she just couldn't believe it. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I'm sure that once she does see it, and you know, you are right. Like I saw it probably too young, like in retrospect, but I didn't get most of the like jokes that I see like, oh, that movie was like maybe a little more risque than I thought it was. But at the time it kind of went over my head. I wasn't really noticing, but we talk a lot on this podcast about the Real Housewives. I don't know if that's something that you dip your toe into at all.
I don't, but you know, I do Jeff Lewis's show. Jeff Lewis, I have his and he's a friend, and I know that I am sort of the opposite kind of a guest for them because he has on a lot of people like that. And my friend Doug, who is often on as a co-host with Jeff, he is a huge fan. So whenever I've stayed with Doug, he has made me watch a couple of episodes. But I still I haven't retained any of it.
I definitely have like had the thought where I was like, what would Amber be doing today? And I feel like she would be a Real Housewife for 100%. Sure.
100%.
So, you know, maybe think about it. I might ask you at the end, but like if Amber had a Real Housewives tagline, I would love to know if you have thoughts of what that might actually be. But I know I'm putting you on the spot. So you might have to think about that one, but I think that she would be epic for that. Also, I mentioned that you were also on Beverly Hills 90210, obviously the bad girl best friend of Valerie Malone. That must have been like a crazy character. I mean, unlike Amber, she was like more of a vixen, but still kind of the bad girl, obviously. So how was that? Was that a fun character to play?
Oh my gosh, Ginger. She was a ball. I always look at that character like, gosh, if I had an ounce of her confidence, and she has got balls, you know, like she did whatever she wanted. And I think she was, you know, she's like a scrapper. She was like, I'm gonna take everything I want here. I'm gonna utilize this situation. And I mean, I think everything, like, she got high, she slept with everyone, she stole things from everyone. She, you know, I think she blackmailed Valerie too. Like, I don't even know. I just thought, oh man,
blackmailed her in order to break up her and David. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was, I always was like, I feel like Ginger needs to be like a regular cast member. Like, she has so much story that we haven't like gotten into. And so that was always my dream would be that you would come back and be a regular.
I loved that show. It was so much fun doing that. I feel like I've been really fortunate in terms of the casts and the groups of people that I've worked with. It was just a joy. Jason Priestley, like, what a lovely human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Beverly Hills was obviously such another iconic show, and like it revolutionized kind of pop culture in so many ways. They had their own Barbie dolls and they had everything, lunchboxes and all the things. And, you know, Clueless was in the same. Like, does that resonate to you as like, you know, a star of one of these major films and TV shows, that you were part of this like huge pop culture shift?
I mean, I don't know how else to, it's just like it's just how my life has been. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know how it would be to not be a part of it. So,
well, again, and you started so early with Clueless, like being like one of the first films or the first film. And, you know, so obviously it's like that probably just became second nature.
Yeah. I feel like I have been very fortunate to be a part of so many of these things that really have imprinted themselves on pop culture. I mean, Sabrina and Clueless and 90210, like all of those things. I feel very fortunate to have worked on so many things that really, you know, have stuck with people. And it's nice. It's great.
Yeah. And, you know, I have to imagine that like the cast of those groups, like, because it was such a movement, like, do you guys stay in touch? Like, how does that, I mean, does it feel like when you were shooting the ad, was it like feeling like homecoming week?
I mean, I hadn't seen Alicia in a bunch of years. Over the years, we've had a couple of things to do, always, you know, surrounding an anniversary or something. And when my daughter was a baby and her son was maybe a year and a half old, we had to do this photo shoot. And I think maybe I saw her once after that, but I really hadn't kept in touch with her. Donald Faison I keep in touch with, and, you know, we message each other from time to time. And I was at his wedding, and but I keep in touch with Melissa Joan Hart and a lot of people from that cast, David Lasher, who was on Sabrina and was also on Clueless, the series. And who else? Nobody. Jason, once in a while too, we communicate. We did another project together that he directed, this web series, which the name is escaping me. It was a bunch of years ago now too. And that was really fun because he directed me and I played, you know, one of the grown-ups. It was a show about young kids. And so he's terrific. I keep in touch with him a little bit too.
Yeah, in my mind, like, everyone's on a group chat and
we're all hanging out all the time.
Yeah. You know, you're going to Melrose.
We do have a Sabrina chat. We do, actually.
Okay.
There is that isn't all the time, but whenever, you know, we have something that we want everybody to know about, or if we do like a reunion thing in the pandemic, we did this reunion event for charity. And, and I'm doing 90s Con with Alicia and Stacy in March. And
amazing.
The Sabrina, I think Brecken is doing it as well. I'm not 100% certain on that. And, but the cast of Sabrina will be there too. So we're trying to, you know, merge.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. Yeah. 90s Con. That sounds like exactly where I should be. I don't know why sounds like that is where you should be. Yeah. I just learned about it just now. So now I'm like probably going to be Googling it after.
There you go.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I also want to talk about your book because, and it's also becoming a film that you're going to direct. Is that right? So So I lost my mother to terminal cancer when I was 18. So
Oh.
I really resonated when I like saw what the book was about, and I went through, and I started to like pull some quotes that I was like going to want to read for the podcast. And then I was like, no, I want to, not cry in front of Elisa. But like I was reading like the letter that you wrote your dad, and it was like reminding me of, things, times where it's like you want to say those last few things that you never got to say. And I've never thought about writing a letter to my mom. And you kind of gave me that like thought that like now I want to do that exercise because it's such a healing thing. And, I want you to kind of tell what came or how the book came to be, because I feel like I get visited from my mom in different ways. And so I just like, when I saw what you were writing about, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. And so I started getting into the reading of it, and it's just amazing, the storytelling. But for folks listening, tell us a little bit about like what the book is and how you came to write it.
Mm-hmm. First, I'm so sorry. That's really young to lose your mom. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it like decimated me, and I was 30 or 31. So I feel for you. So the book, all of these things happened at one time. My dad was diagnosed with cancer. Sabrina was canceled, and I did not get another job. I tested what's called screen testing for all these pilots, did not get a job. And then my relationship ended with the person I thought I was going to marry. And then my dad died. So sort of all of these things that made my life make sense were just systematically removed. And I had quite literally nothing to hold on to. And it made me reevaluate my whole life and my entire path and what I really wanted and what mattered to me and how I wanted to spend not only my time, but my creative life and my creative time, like what was really my purpose in being here. And the book is really about the grief process, and then how unexpected all of that was for me. And also how so much of the healing came from these otherworldly sorts of experiences with my dad, and the dreams in particular that he came to me in, they're just extraordinary. And, anyone that has had this kind of visitation dream knows what I'm talking about. It's very different than, I have a very active dream life, and there are a lot of dreams in the book, but these visitation ones are so distinct and so different and really powerful. And it just opened up something in me that helped me to understand how when someone we love dies, they don't really leave us. It just changes, the relationship changes. And for me, that was really healing and revelatory. I mean, I honestly feel as though my relationship with my dad is closer now than it was when he was alive, And, oh, son, did you see that? Something just fell over. Oh my God.
There's Dad.
That scared me. Oh my God. Sometimes he's also laughing a lot. Do things like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, that's Dad. I mean, there he is. He's saying hello. Yeah. That's that was something that I thought you did so well in the book, was really defining and describing the grief process. Like I remember when you talk about like laying on the shower floor for like sometimes 40 minutes, just letting the water rush over you. And, that is like such a way of like describing that grief process. It's like sometimes you just like, and life goes on. And so those moments in the shower and things like that, like are the ones that you sort of have to hold on to. Because, obviously I wasn't Amber and Clueless. So when I had my moments on the street crying, people weren't coming up and asking if they could take photos with me, like they were with you. But, you talk, even in that story that you told about the woman that came up and like wasn't understanding that you were saying like, hey, I'm like in the middle of, a grief process and going through like a hard time. She was kind of unaware, but it resonated to me because it was this like, well, life goes on and the people around you are not aware of the things that you're feeling when you're going through the grief. And so it was amazing.
And that's so disorienting because it's so present with you, right? That it feels like it's written all over your face, right? Or it's just written all over your body. So everybody has to see it.
Yeah.
and they don't, but it's like, that's how intensely it feels. And it becomes, it feels sometimes impossible to get through the world. And, it's so isolating. And I became really aware of how resistant we are in our culture to talking about difficult things like this. And
Yeah.
it's hard to be vulnerable in that way and intimate with people. It's really difficult because it feels like this weight, like it's just too much, it's too much for anyone to handle. And I felt as though I want to somehow help us to shift this.
Yeah.
Feeling,
and you're doing that with the book. Like, I think I urge people to go read it because it does. And especially if you've gone through something like this. And, I've had friends also that have, said like, well, that have lost loved ones or friends or family. And, they're like, well, I don't know that I've ever felt that visitation, or, when I tell them stories about things, and I'm like, it probably is happening. You just have to be more aware of it. Yeah. And I think the more that like we talk about it and share each other's stories, like you become more aware of those things around you.
Because I think oftentimes there's something that we're resisting it, but we don't even realize it. And sometimes that resistance comes from, it's too painful, right? Yeah. I don't want to think about it. And so if I open myself up to that, it's just going to hurt too much. And that was the feeling that I had in the first dream that I had with my dad. When I woke up, I felt incapacitated. Like, oh my God, I do not know how to function now. Like now I really feel this, but what winds up happening is it opened me in a way that allowed me to process my grief and to let him in and let other people in, and to not be so scared of the pain,
Yeah.
When people, I've unfortunately know two people who lost children in the last 2 years. And that is just, I can't even think about that in my own, like, it's just, as a parent, it is just the absolute worst thing that you can imagine. And, I think while that grief, I think, is very specific and different to any other kind of grief, the thing that I think is most helpful to to my friends in particular has been to allow them to talk about it and to be unafraid of their pain, to just hold it for them. And, in one case that the child has come, like he's around me all the time, and I'm not a medium. It's a very specific, I feel such a closeness to this child. And I think it's just because I'm very open to it, and I feel, it doesn't scare me. I don't, I welcome it, and it feels like it's very healing for people, because it feels like death is so final. Everyone feels that way, but I've learned that it just isn't. It's final in the physical form. Yes. Like my dad's not sitting here having a cup of coffee with me, but sometimes I'm like, he's having a cup of coffee with me.
And, and you write the letter and you kind of have this like piece of knowing that like, he's read it, like he's got it. And he's like feeling that even and really, you didn't even have to put those words on paper because he felt them already, but it's like, I think it's such a great thing. And so I know that, I know you're busy, and I feel like I could talk to you about this all day because I really, truly, I
didn't know you had such a connection to this. So I really, I appreciate you sharing it with me.
Yeah, I was when I started looking at the book, and I was like, oh, like I'm so interested in this, and similarly, like I never felt like I was a medium or things, but I did see one, and she had said to me like, you're intuitive, like you have those feelings, and I was like, well, I mean, I've thought things before, and she's like, no, those are real things.
Yes.
And it's such an amazing thing. So tell us, because I know you're going to have to go, but tell us a little bit about like the film and like, what's the next thing that you've got going on so that we can, continue to talk about it.
Yes. So the film version of the book is in development. And what that means is I have written the script and I am attached to directing it. And we have about half of the cast attached so far, and I have a wonderful producer who has been to Sundance many times and won awards at Sundance.
Amazing.
And we are raising the financing, so putting together the final financing now. So we're hoping that we'll be able to shoot by the end of the year.
Cool.
So that's the plan.
Yeah. Well, hopefully like maybe when the film comes out, maybe you'll come back and we can talk more about it because, like I said at the beginning, this is like a dream come true. You were like such a pivotal part of so many things that I loved growing up. And it really felt like, it almost felt like a gift from my mom when I saw your book. And I was like, wow, I already feel connected. Because when I started this podcast, I just have to tell you, my husband asked me like, well, who would be one of your dream guests? And you were one of the first people that I said, because I was like, she was in all of these things. Like, yeah. So I need to just wrap it up because I have done it now. Like you were the MVP here. So, but really I'm so grateful. And, I am that girl on the street now who you've just made the day. And, I appreciate you being here and everything that you have given to pop culture.
Oh, Chris, this has been an absolute pleasure. Truly. Yes. Thank you so much for having me and for sharing all of that.
And where can people find you online? What your socials are?
Yes. So Instagram is Red Donovan and Twitter is Red Donovan. And I think TikTok is the same. TikTok is a newer thing. So forgive me. I don't really know how to do it, but I've done a couple things that people seem to like on there. And Facebook is Elisa Donovan. They all have the little blue check mark.
Perfect. Yeah. Because there's a lot of imposters out there. So make sure you're following the right one. But yeah. And I did see the TikToks. I have a little something special to go along with this, this episode that I've used one of your TikToks for. So, so be on the lookout for that. But like I said, but like I said, thank you so much for doing this. I definitely hope that we get to chat again. And for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to follow Elisa. And like I said, get the book because it could be life-changing for you. And it certainly has been for me. And yeah, don't forget to rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode of The Gist. I have been Chris Vetrano and living my dreams right here. So you guys go do that. Have a great week. And thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you.